Hello YouTube. I present different ideas about ancient civilizations and possible existence of a very advanced societies in the antiquity. Perhaps Atlantis, perhaps similar states and their outposts. My research is centered around the period of 12,000 years BC, when I estimate the advanced society we call Atlantis disappeared, and also the period of about 2600 BC, when great civilizations in China, Crete, Egypt and India, among others, ascended with great knowledge and skills. But let's look for other hypotheses too. And please believe me, I am not challenging anyone's religious beliefs, and I am not at all promoting ancient deities. Not at all. What I am doing is trying to untangle mysteries of our past, where we come from, whether we humans had incredibly advanced civilizations that perished in some cataclysmic event, but somehow saved the accumulated knowledge and promoted it, albeit in close circles. Or maybe they did not really perish. All we can do is research with what is given us. According to the generally accepted history of the development of ancient society, the first established civilizations appeared on Earth because of slow and painful development and independently of each other. However, there is an opinion that the formation of the first highly developed civilizations was facilitated by a sharp cultural leap that occurred in the second half of the 4th millennium BC. The analysis of historical and archaeological facts show that in the Nile Valley and the area between the Tigris and Euphrates, a class stratification of society suddenly, by historical standards, took place, and the two civilizations ascended or arose, ancient Egypt and ancient Sumer. Already in the earliest era, kings with signs of despotic power appeared simultaneously in Egypt and Sumer, and a similar writing system was used in the form of uncomplicated half inscriptions, half drawings. According to the information gathered in the most ancient legends, the rapid development of civilization was due to the arrival of the gods and demigods of the Egyptians in the Nile Valley and the divine ancestors of the Sumerians in the Mesopotamia region. At the same time, the traditions of the Egyptians and Sumerians indicate that their gods came from across the sea, that is, that they were experienced sailors. Moreover, the Sumerian myth of the god Enki and the Egyptian myth of the god Khnum seem to reflect the development of both civilizations from the same common marine source. Enki traveled by sea on his huge ship called the Wild Goat. His mission was to bring civilization to people. Thus the motif of the goat appears before us as a sea symbol. In ancient Egypt, temple paintings often depicted the god of creation Khnum with the head of a goat, who, according to legend, was the captain of the ship that brought the first gods to Egypt. The arrival of this elegant vessel with a high bow is depicted in an ancient wall painting discovered in the Nile Valley and dating back to about 4500 BC. It's not easy to put all the various elements of the complex chain of events reflected in the myths into one chain, but it seems that the oldest deity in the Sumerian pantheon was Sin, the god of the moon, and among the Egyptians the most ancient and revered was Thoth, the god of wisdom and the moon. The similarity of these two deities is too great to be accidental, said the famous Egyptologist Sir Wallace Budge. It would be wrong to assume that the Egyptians borrowed it from the Sumerians, or the Sumerians from the Egyptians, but we can assume that the enlightened priests of both peoples borrowed their theological systems from some common but very ancient source. The existence of a third party whose cultural achievements were available and quite independently to both Egypt and Mesopotamia would best explain the presence of common features between these two civilizations. These common features include the use in the religious cults of both Egypt and Mesopotamia of the cult of a hero conquering two lions at once. Further, both princes of Sumer and the Egyptian pharaohs had a beard as sign of strength. Moreover, the rulers of both states bore the same title, Heavenly Bull. The Egyptian sacrificed bull Apis. He was a deity personifying the forces of fertility associated with the power of the pharaoh, and the rituals of worshipping him practically did not differ from those used in Sumer to worship the bull, the son of the god Enlil. Common rituals also assume the presence of a single common source from which they came and were adopted. The continuity is seen especially clearly if we draw a parallel between the Sumerian god Asari and the Egyptian Osiris. Their deep internal similarity only begins with the similarity of their names. In both civilizations, God was a human being who reached the divine degrees after spreading knowledge, cultural benefits, and advanced technologies around the world. Later, he was treacherously killed, and the body was dismembered, and the pieces were scattered over considerable distances. Then his wife's sister, Inanni in Sumer and Isis in Egypt, collected the pieces of his body and made him immortal thanks to her magical charms. There are other obvious similarities. For example, both in Egypt and Sumer, prayers and religious rites were performed to the continuous singing and music of flutes and harps. The main constellation of Egyptian gods coincides with the Sumerian ones. In the temples and palaces of both countries, there is a winged disc, a ball with wings or with snakes. Everywhere it means that the territory of the gods and their planet. In Egypt, it denoted the god Horus and his territory, and in Sumerian mythology, the planet Nibiru. When depicting their rulers, the artists of both Egypt and Sumer painted them with huge, much larger than they were in life, and surrounded by much smaller figures of all other people. The past is rarely silent, even if it is covered with the dust of millennia. Sometimes it can speak clearly. In this regard, the seal from the Sumerian Uruk is interesting, it depicts two fantastic animals with snake necks, which are so intertwined that they formed a circle or disc. This image obviously expressed a certain cult idea, and it is strikingly reminiscent of the image of the slate plate of the Egyptian pharaoh Narmer at the time of the foundation of the state on the Nile. The ancient Egyptian religion, in the period of the ancient kingdom, was characterized by the cult of the sun god Ra, and in early Sumer, the same function was performed by the first god Dingir, that is shining. It is noteworthy that the ancient Egyptian pyramids were worshipped as the mountains of Ra, and the Sumerians' ziggurats were considered as steps leading to the sky to the god Dingir. And during the funerals of the pharaohs of the first dynasty, their servants were sacrificed, burying them not far from the pharaohs, so that they could serve them in the next world. And the funerals of the first Sumerian rulers took place in the same way. A significant evidence of the close interaction of the two cultures is the discovery in Egypt of 4 cylindrical seals, undoubtedly of Mesopotamian origin, dating from the heyday of the Sumerian city of Uruk. These are stone cylinders with a height of 1 to 6 centimeters. According to the objects found with them, these seals can be dated to the late pre-dynastic period, I would say from the years 50 to 63. That is the time immediately preceding the first dynasty. We should also mention a luxurious flint knife with a handle made of a hippo's fang, found on the Red Sea coast in the Gebel el-Arak area. The handle is undoubtedly made by an Egyptian carver, but according to Sumerian motifs, it should be noted that the features that make these two civilizations related to each other appeared in full in both Egypt and Mesopotamia from the very beginning. This allows us to make an informed assumption that the culture came there from a single source. Its existence is confirmed by the discovered artifacts. During archaeological excavations in Egypt and Mesopotamia, identical, perfectly polished crystal lenses were found, which can currently be made only in one way, using cesium oxide obtained by electrochemical means. It is clear that such a legacy should be associated with scientific thinking and complex information of a mathematical nature. Apparently, the Egyptians and Sumerians were really the heirs of the common ancient mega or super civilization, which had the most advanced technical and cultural achievements. In ancient Egyptian texts, it was called TA-NETERU, the land of the gods. It was believed that the TA-NETERU was located somewhere far to the south of Egypt, beyond the seas and oceans. It is possible that its coordinates are indicated by the sundial discovered in Egypt, the design principle of which is applicable only for a country located at latitude of 15 degrees, which is 1,000 kilometers away from the southern border of Egypt. Based on all this, the fairy tale land of the gods could really be located only on the coast of the Hindustan Peninsula, which is completely located at 15-degree north latitude, and indeed off the coast of the western Indian state of Gujarat. An expedition of the National Institute of Technology, it was an ecological expedition, they discovered a huge underwater city. On the sonar screen, streets, houses, and squares were traced on the territory of 40 square kilometers. 13 kilometers to the south of the first find, there was another city, a little smaller. Indian archaeologists have drawn up a plan of an underwater city and mapped the riverbed on which it once stood. Scientists believe that some buildings had 3 floors and reached the length of 40 meters. And there are thousands of such buildings. Scientists have the impression that here, in the Cambay Bay of Arabian Sea, a developed civilization has disappeared from the face of the earth. At the same time, radiocarbon analysis of the logs raised from the bottom of the bay gave amazing results. It turned out that they are at least 9,500 years old. But of course, this dating still requires verification. It seems that this sensational discovery confirms the authenticity of the existence of the proto-civilization of TA-NETERU, the land of the gods. But let's look a little bit more about these interesting archaeological finds. Hindu mythology is rich and interesting. There are a lot of legends about fairy tale cities and fictional characters in it. However, recently scientists have found out that one of the legends, despite its improbability, turned out to be true. We're talking about the capital of the kingdom of Krishna, the seat of the Yadava tribes, which once had about 1 million rich palaces. Scientists have found out that Dwaraka, the capital of the kingdom of Krishna, which according to legend was built in just one night, actually existed for a very long time, 10,000 years. The remains of this city were recently discovered at the bottom of the Arabian Sea. As they say in ancient manuscripts, there were about 1 million buildings in this city, the walls of which were well decorated with silver and jewelry. At the same time, this settlement was striking in the quality of buildings, the evenness of roads, wide streets and alleys. There were beautiful parks and gardens with trees, as well as many palaces and gates of extraordinary beauty and perfection. There were cellars in the houses, where grain and water were stored in silver and gold vessels. The floors are made of precious marakata. Marakata refers to emerald and is the name of a type of precious stone, gem or jewel, typically used in ancient India. How surprised were the archaeologists themselves when they discovered ancient buildings under the water of the Arabian Sea, which turned out to be the sunken legendary Dwaraka. Thus the myth turned out to be true. The sunken city at a depth of 40 meters in the Gulf of Cambay was discovered by the Indian archaeologist Dr. Rao. His discovery was so sensational that it was called the Indian Atlantis, or the Atlantis of Dr. Rao. The archaeologist began his research back in 1979 with the coastal zone in the area of modern Dwaraka. The found artifacts have an estimated origin of 1500 BC. According to various sources, the city existed from 2 to 30,000 years. It is interesting that the remains of buildings found under the water have preserved their irregular geometric shapes. The finds turned out to be walls, paved roads, and sculptures. Even though the buildings have not completely survived, the outlines of the buildings are clearly traced. Even today it can be argued that Dwaraka was a truly beautiful, fabulous kingdom. As a result, the ranging elements swept the coastal cities under the water and calmed down only by the middle of the second millennium BC. Remember what I told you about the dates. Anyway, so there was no more the beautiful capital of the Yadavs, which now lives only in legends and underwater. At the same time, despite all the efforts of archaeologists, the Indian authorities do not consider it necessary to continue any search work on the bottom of the sea. After all, they simply do not have the money for this. If I'm wrong, please tell me, but I'm just giving you the information with the Russian flavor, so to say, because my research uses Russian sources, and research conducted by great Russian writers and researchers and scientists too. So if I'm wrong, if anybody from India has something else to add, please do in the comments. Nevertheless, the excavations are continuing, and it is likely that scientists will still have something to surprise us with. So I wanted to present this information to you, but in my future videos I'll present a summary of ancient knowledge and technologies that are not well known in the West, and I'll tell you about the surprising source of this knowledge. Also, in my future videos I want to expand into information, discoveries in Central Asia, an important but overlooked region, and of course ancient Iran, of course India too, and China, because if we start combining discoveries, archaeological and others, together, it will confirm something that I will tell you soon in another video. This is my research. If you like it, please help me. The information how to contribute to my research is in the description to this video. Please subscribe to my channel and tell others. Thank you for your attention.